The light on the wet ink, the sound that the brayer makes when it's putting the ink on type, and then the impression that the paper makes onto that type leaves a tactile impression on the paper. I'm Marie Oberkirsch, Director of Central Print. The smell of the ink in the room when you open the door, you know that you're in a creative space. Once the ink is applied to the text, the paper's put face down, and you roll the impression cylinder across. And it doesn't look like much until you peel that paper up and reveal the transfer of ink to paper, and it's miraculous. You can set wood type boldly, just 4 letters, put some ink on, and make your statement. Or you can set a poem with an 8-point typeface that's pretty meticulously set. I remember growing up in the 70s, and I'd open up a newspaper. I could smell the ink. That day of paper and ink seems to be fleeting, but a lot of the equipment and technology is still relevant today. So we acquire equipment that needs preservation and conservation, and then we make it accessible to printers and artisans who'd like to use it. You'll see in a lot of movie trailers and things type that's been distressed to look old, like maybe in an old Western film clip. And what you'll find here in the shop is how that type really is distressed. The scratches that are from a ring that somebody might have been wearing, or a crush mark if somebody stacked another font on top of it, or a crack in the wood. But I think even more fun to think about is the kerning process and the attention to detail that you can have when you're actually handling each type, character, and letter form. There are thin pieces of metal that you can put in between. Leading is something that you might use in your computer program, but here it's a literal piece of lead, and it comes in various thicknesses, and you can cut it to size. And even beyond that, there are coppers and brasses that are thinner, brasses being a little thicker than coppers, so you can get super fine. We do have the collection of the Lebanon Advertiser here that was all newspaper typesetting equipment, so large fonts for headlines. So if you want some bigger metal types, you can find them here. This is our St. Louis Type Foundry Washington hand press. It came from the Lebanon Advertiser, and when we received it, this block was on the press bed, talking about FDR's 3rd term. So that was a fun reprint that we were able to make here. But just to show you the action of the press, we would hand ink, place the paper on top, and then turn this wooden cylinder. There are leather straps and rails, just like ice skates and oil. So it's a beautiful transition to lock that press bed into place. And then you pull the platen down. Big print area and fantastic pressure to make your print. 1860 is probably the oldest equipment that we have here in the shop, and all the way up through the 20s and 30s and 40s. One example that really comes to mind are all the foreign language newspapers that were printed here. We have examples from a Polish newspaper that was here in the neighborhood up in Old North St. Louis. We know that the mother and daughter were still publishing the paper in the basement in the late 60s. Running an intertype and making sure that that publication made it out. We do love Old North St. Louis. Something too that we love is just as you look south to the Arch grounds, you can see where a lot of those type foundries and printing presses would have been back in the day before the Arch was built. We do feel that Central Print is grounded in St. Louis's history, and our location supports that as well. From the print shops that were right here in the neighborhood to the Arch grounds that we look down upon. All of the trains and riverboats would have brought materials and supplies, so St. Louis was really a big hub for getting type and letterpress equipment and print out to the world. Book arts is flourishing, so a lot of people are doing zines that are very contemporary in feel, but this equipment still works well for that. Wood type, metal type, cutting images out of linoleum block carvings and printing them to express yourself and create a zine that's all brand new content, often from equipment that's 120 years old. The tactile quality of it, the unique nature of each typeset letter, our eye recognizes that and appreciates it for what it is. It was handled by another person, artfully composed and printed. Letterpress is evocative because of the nostalgia that we feel for it, but there is something richer that's still modern and contemporary and very much about today. and I think it's the hand of the artist. You really see that in the printed page.